We've got Mr. Mark Boleat. Mark is a big fan and friend of India. He's the chairman of City of London. He's been visiting India since 1980s, Mark, right? And he has seen both pre-liberalization India and post-liberalization India, and now really helping us in this initiative of making Mumbai and India as an international financial center. So Mark, welcome, and thank you for your time. I know you arrived overnight, so thank you for doing this conference, and thank you for speaking to us. We will follow a format of Q&A. We do have, and I've got a lot of suggestions and a lot of questions, so we will, towards the end, we'll go to audience and take a couple of questions. But it's some initial thoughts from me. You've been coming to India since long time, 1980s, you in the various capacities. What are your initial reactions? And based on that, what's your thinking about making India as international financial centers? And suggestions, if I can say, give us some your tips to Government of India.
It's a very short question, but some very big issues there. I have been coming to India now for well over 30 years, initially because I ran the trade association for the mortgage lending industry, and so I know HDFC particularly well. And in the last 4 years, I've been coming in my capacity as chairman of the City of London Policy and Resources Committee. I have, of course, seen massive changes in India and in Mumbai in particular. To us in London, it is a really important economy. We value the links that we have with India. We want to see much stronger links. We want to see more Indian businesses in London, and we want more British businesses to be operating in India. I find it very difficult to give any foreign country advice. All I can do is say what we have done in London to make London the world's leading international financial centre. How do we get there in the first place? Well, by a bit of luck, by some accidents, by some bad decisions by other countries, particularly America, that drove business to London. But there's some overriding issues that have made London what it is today. Britain has been very open. We welcome people from anywhere in the world to do anything. We really do not mind what nationality people are. I was watching English football on Indian television last night and was hard-pressed to find a single English footballer playing for any of the English football teams. And that's why our football league is the best in the world. And perhaps it might explain why the IPL is pretty important in cricket, because it takes people from around the world. So being open is absolutely critical to London's success. We really don't mind what nationality institutions are. We don't mind what nationality people are. Second point is reasonably predictable tax, regulation, and legal systems. We've got a huge advantage in Britain. Our legal systems go back hundreds of years. The English courts, I think, are probably the world's best. The English contract law is used the world over, including by businesses that don't even have anything to do with Britain. So our court system is critically important. Our taxation is predictable. Our regulatory system is fairly predictable. So all of those things are important. And then we also have the infrastructure. London is very well connected. You may have read about our issues about expanding airport capacity. We will take years to decide anything. We've taken 4 years to have a review to decide whether to do anything. And it could now take the government more years to decide whether to do anything based on the report as to what it should do. So we do need more airport capacity, but still the links with London are very good. We in the city have played our part by ensuring that there are adequate office facilities, both in our capacity as a planning committee and also as a developer. So it is the combination of all of those things that have made London what it is today. It's the place that people want to be, and because all the services are in London, we attract more business. Once you get a critical mass, the business comes. I won't say automatically, but it makes it easier. So that's where London is today, and we have to work very hard to keep there, because we have strong competition from New York, from Singapore, from Hong Kong, and from many other centres as well.
Mark, thank you. This is very interesting. I mean, you talked about two very important issues, the infrastructure and stability in the tax laws and the regulations. I think that's applicable in any area, right? So it's a really very, very important point which you make. City of London, if you see, is in terms of ranking, is #2 globally as an international financial center. There are some ranking published about Mumbai as well, and that suggests that Mumbai is at somewhere around 53, am I right? So we are at 53, and City of London is #2, and you are closely associated with City of London and helped them reaching #2. In fact, at one point of time, they were #1, I guess. I also understand that you are meeting the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. Fadnavis, later this afternoon. What's going to be your advice to him? What are the things which he should focus on to make Mumbai from 53 to, if not 2, but 3 at least, it can be in neighborhood of London? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to begin by disagreeing with you. I don't think London is #2 international financial centre. I think it's #1. You're using a league table provided by a company in London that is based on a number of criteria. A lot of it's very subjective. In terms of international business, London is clearly #1. It's of a very similar size to New York, but New York, which is again a major international financial centre, but New York's got a very big economy attached to it, of America. London's got a much smaller economy of Britain. So London is more international in nature. And then you take jurisdictions like Hong Kong and Singapore, which themselves are tiny economies, but with massive international financial centres. Then you have many other centres, and Mumbai is one, that is a big national centre. And almost every country has a national centre. Some countries have got a number of national centres. And there's a big role for national financial centres. So saying that one is #2 and one is #53, I don't think gets us very far. Mumbai is the biggest financial centre in India. If Mumbai wants to become international, then there are things that it needs to do. But that's a decision that is for people to take in Mumbai. It's not for me in London to say what it is you should be doing. But to be international, the key thing is to be international, to welcome institutions and people from all over the world to operate in your market. I host a number of regular events in London, dinners and lunches, and I can look round the table at the people I've got coming from the home team, and I can find I've got a Frenchman running the London Stock Exchange, a Frenchman running an insurance company, an American running an insurance company, a German running a German bank. I might have a Portuguese man running a British bank. I may even have a Briton, but that sometimes doesn't happen. And I said, we are completely nationality blind. And that is a big jump for, I think, any jurisdiction to take. London is a global city. Over 30% of the population of London was not born in Britain. I wasn't born in Britain. I'm an immigrant as well. So it's a question of whether a country really wants to be international. And of course, in Britain, this is not universally accepted. There is concern about immigration, the high level of immigration, but that concern is most strongly felt in those parts of the country where there are fewest immigrants. In London, we pride ourselves on being global, and the way that we ran the Olympics, I hope, was a very good example of that.
I was hoping that you will take the name of some Indians as well, because globally there are lots of Indians now running global corporations. Hopefully someday in London as well. Well, I know a couple of CEOs who are Indian who are running large corporations in London. Just going back to the theme of the conference, if you look at the theme of the conference is disruptive innovation and inclusive growth. This morning in the inaugural session, there was a very interesting question related to CSR was posed to the Governor Rajan. How do you think international financial centers, and particularly London, deal with these subjects? I'm sure you must be facing the similar subjects, etc. How do you deal with that? And anything specific to be done around that?
Well, two distinct but related issues. Dealing with disruptive technology, we're very keen on that in Britain. We have a huge fintech industry. It's developed around the northern bit of the City of London. We had something called Tech City, which is a bit mythical. Many people claim to have invented it, including the government, as governments always claim to invent things that work. But it's developed around the north end of the city because it's closely connected with business. You may get a lot of new technology developed at universities and on greenfield sites, and you've got Silicon Valley in America. You've got Cambridge, which is an astonishingly successful city in Britain. But if somebody wants to develop technology that's going to have practical application in the finance industry, the closer they are to that industry, the better. So there's a big financial technology industry in New York, and there is in London. We in the City of London have recognized the importance of it. A new organization called Innovate Finance has been set up to help develop and promote the industry. We provided £1 million of funding for it to help get it going. We have hosted a number of their events in the city, and we do regular events where we get the top city bankers together with people who have set up a new technology company last week and think they've got something to offer to the banks. So the importance of technology is very much understood. It poses great challenges, not only for the financial institutions, but also for regulators. So we in Britain, for example, have a very big peer-to-peer lending industry now. This is regarded as a good thing for government and regulators, but the lenders have no protection whatever. And there will be some issues when some of the loans go wrong. CSR is a bit of a different issue. In London, we are very keen on it. Indeed, in the city, we established with the Bank of England an organisation called Heart of the City, which helps institutions develop CSR programmes. But a bit of the flavour I got from this morning's discussion is that it might be about lending and about money. We don't regard it as being about lending and money at all. We regard it as being about people. And almost all the major institutions and many smaller ones in the city have got ambitious CSR programmes, but they are predominantly in respect of giving the expertise of their people at all levels in the fields of education, employment, and other social areas. I've been really impressed, for example, with what a number of our big banks do with schools, where they have programs where a large number of their staff are involved as mentors. We in the city sponsor 3 academies, one of them jointly with KPMG, the accountancy firm, one with City University, and one we do on our own. These are in the poorest parts of London. They have been astonishingly successful, now among the best schools in the country. So it's not all about money. It is actually about giving people, lending your people. And we find now that young people in particular expect the institutions they work for to have those sort of programs. And some of the bankers I meet say the most rewarding bit of their work is what they do with the school that they have adopted and with the young people they're working with. So CSR is a lot more than simply giving money and making loans.
That's very interesting. But before I open up for the question, just one last question, and it's an expansion of the same last question from my side. When we talk about inclusive growth, it also means inclusive funding, because without funding, you can't grow. And there's one segment, which again was talked about in the morning, was SME, small and medium enterprises and all. How does the International Financial Center actually helps SME sector?
That's a really important and a big issue, and there's much concern about that in Britain. It was inevitable that financial regulation would be tightened substantially after the crisis, and that was very proper. I'm a bit of a student on regulation. I'm a geek. I've even written a very boring book on regulation. And regulators tend to go too far in response to a crisis, and I think we've done that in Europe, and you're finding that being recognised by the government and indeed by the new Commissioner, Jonathan Hill. One of the problems small businesses face in London is opening a bank account. I ran a consultancy for a number of years on trade associations. I started a number, and opening a bank account was the biggest problem I faced. You know, with a new trade body, how could I produce the all-important gas bill, which seems to be essential to open a bank account in Britain, and how can I produce a business plan and a 3 years accounts when I'm a new business? So it's a real problem, and I think that's recognised in Britain that we've gone rather too far. And then in response to the problems the banks had, they have had to increase their capital requirements. The risk weighting for SME loans is higher than it is for loans to big corporates. So surprise, surprise, there has been a reduction in lending. And there's been a bit of an argument, if not, well, more than a debate, over the last few years of the banks saying we're meeting all reasonable demand from SMEs for loans, and SMEs saying, oh no, you're not, you are withdrawing our overdraft facilities and so on. The banks have worked really hard to get over their point of view and have put a lot more resources into SME lending. And now we've got crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending, which makes a very valuable addition to the resources that are available to SMEs. This is being looked at in the European Union in the context of the single capital market. But the notion we're going to have securitized SME loans, I don't think so. That's a long way away. But the importance of providing finance to SMEs through a range of sources, whether it's venture capital, bank loans, private placements, it's very much on people's agenda. A lot of work is being done. There's more to do.
Great. I've just got an indication that we have time for 1 or 2 questions. So if there is any views, any thoughts, there is one question here. We'll take that if the mic will reach you. Can we get the microphone there, please? Anyone else? I thought the gentleman here. There's one there.
My question is, you have seen the most sophisticated institution in London. So based on your view, how critical is technology? Is it a just basic hygiene factor, or do institutions differentiate based on technology?
The question is whether the technology differentiates the different institutions. How do you rank them? Is that the question?
How critical is technology? Is it the basic hygiene factor, good to have, or do institutions really differentiate based upon their technology in terms of their long-term success?
Yeah, whether you differentiate based on the technology.
I think what we see in Britain, and I think in many other of the developed countries, the big institutions have got real problems with technology. They have got legacy systems that don't work very well anyway and don't talk to each other. So some of the problems we've seen in Britain, particularly with one of our big banks, RBS, it's had a number of computer failures, and they're spending a lot of money trying to get that right. New businesses can come in without the problem of legacy systems. So in Britain, we've had Metro Bank, which is an American bank, has set up very quickly. It's got a large number of branches, including a huge branch very close to us in the city. They've been able to use their own technology. They're able to open accounts much more quickly than the more established banks, because they have developed their own technology that taps into available databases and so on. There is always an advantage in having the new technology first. What the big banks are trying to do is to, take what the fintech industry is developing, to operate some of it directly within the bank, to change the bank systems, or to do other things on the side. I suspect longer term, technology will differentiate financial institutions. It will determine their success. And a big problem, I think, for directors of financial institutions, they actually don't really know how good their technology is. They don't know what the warning signs are, because the people on the boards typically are business people and bankers, and they are taking an awful lot on trust from what they hear from the technology experts. And we even have that in the City of London, where we've had some computer failures as well. So I think it's an absolutely critical issue for the going forward.
Thank you, Mark. I'm getting indication that we'll have to close it now. I know it's the lunch time, as I said. We borrowed some time. But thank you very much.